Hello, this is Justin, a guy who occasionally shoots camping videos and puts them on the internet. And I am doing an overnight trip to Oster Lake Backcountry Campground in Elk Island National Park in Alberta. And I thought I would show everyone what that is like. I don't think I've noticed any videos about camping Oster Lake in the winter. So this is, I think, the only walk-in backcountry site in Elk Island. It's about 5 kilometers hike from the trailhead. And unfortunately for winter camping, you do have to drive all the way into Oster Lake to register for a site before you can drive back out to the trailhead, which is about 15 kilometers away, I think. But not a bad drive from Edmonton. It's a pretty accessible park from Edmonton, so if you kind of look at the ground, the trail is pretty well packed down. There's maybe a foot of snow off trail, but the base is pretty good on the trail itself. So hiking in, assuming you're coming in kind of a few days after any major snowfall, is no problem at all. People have packed it down with snowshoes and skis and their boots and other things. Hike itself is pretty easy. There's just a little bit of up and down, but there's no real elevation gain. And it's all pretty nice kind of woods and plains scenery like this. You will occasionally see plains bison in here. You tend to see their droppings on the trail. Haven't seen any bison or encountered any bison directly on the trail, but they're usually some of the campsite. Hopefully I'll get some video of that. But maybe I'll hike for a little bit more, and then I'll shoot a video showing the entrance to the campsite area and what that's all about. All right, so we are pretty much at the campground now. If you're coming in from the trailhead, you're going to see this sign, and that pretty much tells you that you're there. And if you're coming in from, there's a road, a kind of a service road that you can walk down as well. And that will join up with this trail here. And then you can just walk down here to the campsite. I've done both. And I think on the service road, I tend to see more wildlife. There tend to be bison kind of hanging out, using that as a pathway. So if you're kind of hoping to see some wildlife while you're hiking, that's an interesting option as well. Kind of boring though, because it's just a road through the woods. But both are good, you can pick. And you can see I'm getting here right at dusk. It's probably just below zero now. And I think the forecast for tonight is going to be negative 20 Celsius. So pretty cold, but later on in the video when I'm setting up, I'll kind of go over some of the gear I like to take for a camp trip like this to keep me warm and safe overnight. A lot of people think I'm crazy for doing winter camping in Alberta at negative 20 and below, but it's really all about preparation, moisture management, and just having the right specialized equipment to do it safely and easily. And I have all that, so I should be good. This is a big field. It's kind of a clearing that you see as you're entering the campground area. Quite often there will be bison hanging out there in the morning. And then just around the corner here, we'll see the main campsite. Oster Lake is a pretty unimpressive lake, all things considered. It's pretty shallow, pretty small, but it is a decent place to camp for the night. And you can actually see there are some bison out here. So let's just get a little bit closer, and then I'll maybe flip to landscape so we can get a better shot of this. So campground entrance here. There's the campground. And I'll show you the bison. And there he is. Okay, it is quite a bit later. I have a nice fire going. It is dark, but a beautiful moon out in the sky. I've had dinner, so I'm feeling pretty warm. And just kind of looking at some of the stuff I have set up here. I am wearing some Rab down pants. These are great when you get to camp. You're kind of not moving around anymore. You do want this nice kind of insulating static layer. Your long johns just aren't going to do it for you. And then I'm also wearing a down jacket. And I just wanted to point out these boots, which are just outstanding for winter camping. These are the Baffin Borealis boots. And the nice thing about them, I'll kind of show you again when I go to bed, but these have kind of an outer shell and then an inner liner that separates. Because what happens when you go winter camping, if you're hiking in, your shoes are going to absorb all of the sweat that you've made. And you'll make a surprising amount of sweat out of your feet. So if you take off those boots at night and leave them outside in the freezing weather, then they'll just be frozen in the morning. And those are very unpleasant to put on. It takes forever for them to warm up and soften up. I get blisters from them. So these things, I'll actually take the liners out of the boot. I'll leave the boot outside because it's just a plastic shell. And I'll actually take the liners into my sleeping bag with me. And that way they're nice and warm in the morning. And I can just slip my linered feet into the boots. And I don't have to worry about any frozen boots in the morning, which is pretty nice. I'll get up and kind of show the rest of the setup here. So I am just sitting in a Helinox chair. These are great for winter camping too. And then I have this black diamond tent. It's an assault style tent, and I kind of hate it, but it is great for winter camping. It's a single layer. It just has 2 poles on the inside, and then this kind of pole that spreads the roof out, so it's got a decent amount of space. And then inside here I have my sleeping bag. This sleeping bag will keep me comfortable down to, I've been out in negative 30 Celsius weather. Has a kilogram of down in it, so it's nice and well insulated. And yeah, it's pretty good. The key thing you want to do is when you get to camp, you want to take your sleeping bag out and let it loft up as much as it possibly can, so that when you get into it, it's kind of full of air. If you take it out right before you go to bed and it's still all kind of compressed, then it's going to take quite a while to loft and get warm. Underneath that, I have an X-Bed down mat. So that's an inflatable mattress. It's going to keep me insulated from the ground, while the sleeping bag keeps me insulated from losing heat to the rest of the universe. And yeah, and that's quite important. I think this one has an R value of 8, so it's pretty warm, and I'm generally pretty pleased with it. And then I've just got a little Nemo pillow under there. The sleeping bag is pretty padded, so you don't need much of a pillow in this thing. And then I've got a lantern up there. What I tend to do when I'm winter camping, once it gets dark out, there's not much to do. After your fire dies down, you have your dinner. So I will get into my sleeping bag and just listen to some podcasts and fall asleep. And the final thing I'll do before I go into my sleeping bag is I will boil all this water that's in my Nalgene here, because that's going to freeze overnight. I'm going to boil it in my pot here, and we'll look at my stove in a second. But after I boil it, I'm going to put it back in the Nalgene, and I'm going to put that into the foot box of my sleeping bag. This is probably a tip you've heard before, but that will warm up my feet in my sleeping bag nice and quickly, and it will stay liquid in my sleeping bag until morning. So nice little trick for getting a little bit of extended use out of your sleeping bag and keeping those toes warm. All right, I'm going to get this water boiling. Actually, let's just look at the stove quickly. So this is an Optimus Vega stove. And you can see I am using an ISO canister. I usually take the smaller ones. Backcountry camping, that was the only one that was full. So I had to take this big canister, but you know what, for 5 kilometers hike in, not too bad. All right, so this is the stove, and the important thing about this stove, I'll show you once I get it unfurled here, is it has this preheating tube. So as the fuel is coming through from the ISO canister, it's going to heat up from the flame here, and that's going to allow it to burn liquid fuel. These canisters don't work very good as the temperature goes down, so it'll eventually just stop working, and that's not going to be very good. So what I can do is I can get this going with the gas, so going upright, and then at a certain point I'll flip it, and this tube will be superheated by that point and turn all of that gas, that liquid gas, into vapor before it goes through the nozzle there. So I'm going to go ahead and boil that water, and then I'll do another update when I'm in the tent. All right, it is morning. I know I said I would shoot a video in my tent last night, but I didn't want to. So quick tour of the campground in the light before we go. You've got 2 outhouses there, so you actually get covered toilets at this campsite, which is pretty nice. You get your waste bins here and lots of firewood. The firewood's actually great, burns really well, as you could probably see from my fire last night. And if you pay for a fire permit, which I believe is $5 or $6 or something, you can just take as much as you want. It is a little bit of a hike, depending on which campsite you choose, so just be aware of that, but you know, you can make multiple trips. You do have bear lockers here, which is also very nice. There are bears, they're probably not active now, but you know, in the spring, summer, fall, you would want to put all of your food in a bear locker, and I think you can optionally put a lock on those, but they're pretty secure, so you probably don't need one. There's the campsites. They kind of go along the edges of the campground here. With each one you get a table, and then you get a site for your campfire, and a little lookout there at the end looking over the, not quite a lake, and then you get this cooking area here, which is quite nice. So you have some seating, you've got a stove there, and you can actually see large birds like to hang out in this thing at night, so you'll get giant collections of bird droppings, and I have encountered a few. Usually it's a raven that I find in here, kind of hanging out for the night. The stove is actually great because you can, you know, on particularly cold nights, just set up in here. You don't even need a camp stove, because you can just boil your water right on top there, do your cooking, and you can kind of set up your tent like right out here, and there's another communal campfire right there. That's one final view there. All right, that is camping at Oster Lake Campground in Elk Island National Park. Hope this was useful. A little bonus video shot from the car. There are a bunch of plains bison just hanging out. Doing their plains bison thing. And this is one of the great reasons to come to Elk Island Provincial Park. It's not the elk, it's these guys.